Hi, good morning, everyone. We are so excited for today's webinar and so glad that you were able to join us today. We have a great panel and we're going to get straight into things. First of all, I'll just introduce our speakers. We have Mr. Tony Robbins. We have Mike Clayville from Amazon Web Services and Walter Rogers. He is the CEO of Cloud Coaching International and Baker Communications. So guys, we're so excited that you're here with us to share your insights on customer centricity. We know this is obviously a huge topic. So as we are starting things out, I actually have a poll up for our audience to ask them, what comes to mind when you think of customer centricity? So you guys go ahead and take that poll. And Tony, I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it over to you as we start to focus on the idea of what is so important about customer centricity and why does it work?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time out of your day to visit with us. We want to make sure this is worth your while and your time. And so we're going to kind of chunk this into three parts. I think I'm going to start out here with really what is customer obsession, as if we don't already know, and why is it so important, but maybe giving you some real examples from companies that have maximized the value of this and seen its measurable impact. And then we're going to have Mike Clayville join you, who's going to walk you through how do you turn that obsession into practice, as they've done at Amazon in such a magnificent way. And then Walter's going to wrap up with how do you really build this in your culture so it isn't just a catchphrase. Because we all, look, if you've been around in business and you're in any position of business, we all hear constantly about the importance of customer focus, or better yet, customer obsession. But what is it really, and what does it really look like, and what's really happening? Well, we're in a place that you all know where if you really think about it, the balance of power has changed radically in the last 10, 15 years, where customers themselves, the buyers, have the power. The first power they have is, you used to be able to know what your costs are, what the management costs are, what your competition was. Now in milliseconds, as we all know, without leaving your couch, anybody can find out about as much detail as they need to know about where else they can buy this product for what other price. So rather than become a commodity, we have to have something else we can deliver above and beyond. Hopefully our product and service does that, but it's really our ability to meet those customers' needs. And we have to know that balance of power has changed. So a perfect example of this that my guess is I hope you heard about some years ago, but I still think it's one of the best examples, is United Airlines. There was a gentleman who, they call him now Dave, pretty famous now, who was a singer-songwriter from Canada, and he needed to go to Nova Scotia to someplace in the U.S., and his transfer place was Chicago. And while he was on the plane, he heard somebody else on the plane said, "Oh my God, they're throwing guitars down there." He looks out the window, and he sees his guitar case amongst a couple others just being literally slammed down on the ground, and he freaked out. Well, sure enough, when he landed, he opens up his case. He's supposed to do his little gig, and his guitar is broken. And so what does Dave do? Dave reaches out. He reaches out and says, I want to, talk to somebody. I want to get my guitar replaced. A little Gibson guitar. It's not that expensive, but it means a lot to me. It's what I earn my money from. And he could not get a phone call back for 9 months, month after month doing this. Now, when he finally reached them, he only reached them because he finally decided, what I do best is write songs. So he wrote a song talking about how United destroys guitars. And if you saw it, it was quite a catchy phrase. And within the first day, 150,000 people had watched it. Within a few months, 20 million people had watched it. But more importantly, at that time, they reached out. And why did they reach out? Because United Airlines lost $189 million of market value because this man was putting out this song and people started boycotting them. And they finally made good on it, but way too late. So what's the lesson here? Well, the lesson is it isn't just about how do I get more sales or how do I have a better culture. It really is that we live in a world today where customers travels fast and bad news travels faster. Customer obsession has to be meeting customers where they are in the moment they want it. It used to be just figuring out how to satisfy a customer. But today, satisfied customers go away. Raving fans stay. Our goal is create raving fans. And one of the most simple things that companies mess up on, and it's mind-boggling to me, because the research has been done multiple times. DMS just came out with a study, and they showed that if you reach out to someone within the hour of them contacting you on the web or in any other area, in any other environment, you have a 7 times more likely to reach the decision maker, have that meaningful conversation, have the opportunity for a sale to actually occur. If you wait 24 hours, which is what the vast majority of corporations around the world do, you are 60 times, I repeat, 60 times less likely to actually reach that person, have a meaningful conversation. You call me right back, you're on the web, you monitor, you see my information, and instantly get a phone call within 5 or 10 minutes. You're talking about something 60 times more powerful. So when we know that statistic, and it's been proven multiple times, what percentage of companies actually have a system in place so that they reach back out literally within the hour or less? And the answer is, according to most recent research, it's less than a third. 2/3 of business aren't doing this. When you think about the compound impact to your business in this, it's mind-boggling. And, what are the mistakes that United make? What's the mistake most people are making? They're focusing on meeting customers' needs, but they're not doing it in real time. Being in a position where you're focused at United on how to make sure people are taken care of during the flight forgets the entire customer experience. And the price that they paid is unbelievable. One more simple example. I have a dear friend named Tony Shea over at Zappos, and when he took over at Zappos with his partners there, it was literally in a little apartment building, up in San Francisco. It was struggling, and people didn't think the business was going to make it. And it's not hard to figure out why. If you went back 12 years and said, okay, here's my idea. I want to sell high-end women's shoes and quality women's shoes and discount women's shoes to women, and I want to do it over the web. Well, obviously, it's not hard to figure out. Trying to do this over the web, the first challenge is women got to put these shoes on. But what was brilliant about Tony, it was brilliant about what he built at Zappos, is his entire focus has always been obsessive about the customer. How do I do more for the customer than anybody else on earth? How do I take unreasonable customers and make those customers think we're the greatest company in the world? And he came up with a simple concept. And by the way, this is another way that you can really, truly be customer obsessed. He said, I need to come up with an offer that's irresistible. I need to come up with a culture that promises and keeps that offer. And the offer he wanted was to bring people happiness. And when he told everybody his idea that we're going to allow women to go and order as many pairs of shoes as they want, and we will pay for the shipping, and any pair that doesn't fit, they can send back. And if they want to send all of them back, we'll pay for the shipping. Everybody's company said that's suicide. There's absolutely no way. You can't do that for customers. There's no way. The ratio of cost versus risk versus reward is too high. But the company was near bankruptcy. They had no more capital, and so they implemented his idea, and the obsession turned crazy. He said, guys, you used to understand women. Women associate shoes to happiness. He said, if a woman puts on a pair of shoes and they don't quite fit, but they're beautiful, she'll hang on to those shoes saying, I'm going to fit into those on one day. And he was absolutely right. And Amazon, he sold Amazon for more than $1.2 billion and has stayed on now because he loves the culture so much as the CEO. So I can give you story after story after story. Maybe I'll give you one final example, and then we'll take a couple of questions, and we'll go to Mike on the pragmatic side here. But I have a dear friend named Dr. David Feinberg. He was a psychiatrist who at one point developed some skills and ran the UCLA Psychiatric Hospital. And then suddenly, overnight, if you can imagine this, he became the CEO of UCLA Healthcare Systems. The gentleman who was the CEO of this giant hospital system had a challenge, and they needed to fill the seat quickly, and they said, who do we have? And they said, well, maybe this guy, he's so caring, we've got such great rave reviews on him, maybe he'd be a good temporary CEO while we work this out. Well, they brought him in a hospital like that. UCLA is one of the largest hospital systems out there, so UCLA Healthcare, he's the CEO now. And what happens? He's got 250,000 employees overnight, 50,000 doctors. They see 3 million patients a year. And the first thing he does, everything is an acronym there. So he's brand new, and there's a shorthand for everything. He doesn't know. It's like going to the Army. And so people are talking about XYZ this and CBS that and DNF this, and he's trying to figure it out. And he decided that his entire way to turn this hospital around was to find out what the real experience was for the customer. And so what he did is he spent the first 4 months doing nothing but walking around, observing and interviewing customers, clients, also known as patients. And the first thing he did was he started passing out a questionnaire, which they found out that UCLA, the doctors rated themselves as the very best. They thought they were the best medical system. But the clients, literally 29% of the clients, only 29% of the people who went there said they'd ever recommend that hospital to a family member or friend, which means 71% of them would never recommend this experience again. That's how tough it was. And so he began to figure out how was he going to turn this around. And his obsession was just sitting down and finding out things like people saying, someone came into my room to empty my trash can at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning when I've had drugs all night, I can't sleep, and I've got to heal, or the food is so horrible. I mean, he went through so many elements, but maybe when we do the Q&A, we can talk about pragmatically how he implemented it. But let me just tell you this. He looked around to see what are the ways in which he could truly do more for the client than anybody else. And instead of just him, he trained his staff to do it. And I'll tell you how he did it. He, first of all, he looked for successes he could acknowledge, but he looked for failures that he could teach from. And one day there was a woman who came in for to have her gallbladder removed. And when she came in, somebody mislabeled what's happening on her form. She sat, first of all, in the emergency room for 3.5 hours in this acute state. They go in, they do the surgery. Somebody makes several mistakes. One of those mistakes is a dirty needle that easily should have been sterilized, just a process not followed. And as a result, this woman ended up with this infection she almost died from and literally found herself in the hospital for an extra week. And add insult into injury, she survives all this with all the fear and all the problems she faces in the hospital. Her husband is now gone. He's overseas with work. He was supposed to pick her up. She goes down to get a taxi, and the woman says, you don't qualify, you make too much money, and she has no cash on her. She takes the little cash she has. She's driven about 2/3 way to her home. She literally walks 2 miles to her house. He finds out about this and goes crazy. He drives out as the chairman of the hospital to her home to personally apologize to her. He tells her that he can make good on the finances. He can't make good on her pain, but he could help to make sure this never happens again if she'd come talk to the doctors. And then he brings everyone in, and this is what was so instructive. Keep everyone on the floor, doctors, nurses, janitors, everyone, and have this woman tell her story of what it was like to almost die because people didn't take care of her, what it felt like to sit there for 3.5 hours, what it felt like to literally walk home after all that, the rage, the pain, the fear. And people were deeply moved. And in those systems, they come up with systems to say, how do we make sure we're customer obsessed? And they came up with everything from a reorganization where they used literally the parking lot to create a new entrance for emergency so they could process people quickly, to a person that comes when you first arrive at the hospital. You don't go park your car. There's valet for everyone. They grab your car, and the first thing they say to you, they look you in the eyes and say, you're at the #1 hospital in the world. We're going to take care of you. Tell me what's going on. This man will take your car. I'm taking you straight in. And people feel this sense of connection. One of the most powerful examples he shared with me, and then I'm going to stop and just take some Q&A here, was that he said that what he began to do is teach everyone in the hospital, you're a decision maker. Your #1 focus, you don't need feedback from anyone else, is do what's right when it comes to taking care of clients. Do more for them than they'd ever expect. And make this a healing center instead of a processor where we just take out surgeries and we drug people. And one of the beautiful examples, I'll finish with this, was he shared with me that there was a nurse who had a patient that she was dealing with. She was a 63-year-old woman who was dying of terminal breast cancer. And she was so sick, it looked like she probably wasn't going to last another 3, 4, 5 days. And this woman was so emotional because she was dying, but she couldn't see her family because her daughter was in San Francisco, pregnant, and was about to have a baby in the next couple of days. Well, the nurse decided on her own to call the hospital up in San Francisco. She reached out to the daughter. She said, we here at UCLA want you to be able to be and have your daughter, when she's born, be with her grandmother in the last days of her life. So we're going to pay for it, and you can have your baby here at UCLA Hospital, and then your grandmother, and your mother rather, and your baby's grandmother will be able to be unified. And they were, and she died 5 days later. But she held her granddaughter, and the daughter was with her mother during this time. That is customer obsession. That is what makes people go crazy. That is what will make people thrill down their mind. That is what builds multi-billion-dollar businesses. There is no other exception. And we're living in a world, guys, where in corporations, if you're a leader in a company, I'm sure you all saw the recent study that was done, 143 countries. They said that, that the average company has 11% engagement of their employees. Well, your employees are your other clients. They're your other customers. You got to be just as obsessed with meeting their needs. In America, 29%, we're the highest engagement, but we have 29% engagement of people and companies. I mean, just think about that. That means you're sitting in a situation where the vast majority of your employees, if you're there, or your partners, they're just not actively engaged in any way. In fact, it's the specific statistic I was looking for. Here it is. 71% of U.S. workers are disengaged, according to the study in 142 countries, the Gallup poll. And of the 71%, 24% are what they call actively disengaged, which means they're pissed and they're looking for ways to get even. And for all of you, if you want to know whether customer engagement pays, the most recent studies, companies that have the greatest customer engagement, which of course are Salesforce, everybody there, Mark Benioff, Google, other Apple, Facebook. The Gallup poll found they had 22% more profitability, and almost 1-for-1 for every percentage of increased engagement, they had an increase in profitability. So whether it's needed because customers have a voice like never before, and good news travels fast and bad news travels faster. Remember United. It's needed because it is your only competitive advantage in a world where customers can gather all that information. It is what will fulfill you as a leader when you build a culture where people are always trying to do more for the customer than anybody else. Added value and the customer's perception, doing more than they expect, is the only way to long-term success.